Hey guys, welcome to week 2 of Seasons of a Relationship.
This week we're going to be talking about the season of hardship. And we've kind of talked about how the season of hardship is inevitable. We all kind of go through hard times and bad times. And so Tyler and I kind of want to share the 2 main hardships that we went through and how that affected our relationship. So the first one we went through was when we were in high school. So Tyler and I are high school sweethearts. And the first year of our relationship was pretty normal. We did all of the normal activities. He was a football player, I was on the dance team, I was in cross country, and we were in activities through our school, and we were busy, and it was fun, and we got to go support each other and do activities and be involved. And right after we celebrated our 1-year anniversary, just a few weeks after that, I got really sick, and it was kind of just out of nowhere. I started having a lot of stomach problems, and it was really confusing, and we didn't know where it was coming from. And so I was in and out of doctors for about 4 to 5 months, trying to figure out what was going on. And it really took a damper on my life. I was physically drained, and I was emotionally exhausted. And it was hard because we didn't have answers, and we didn't know what was causing this. And it really started to pull me out of some of my activities because I was barely able to keep food down, and I didn't want to get sick in front of people, so I didn't want to hang out with people because I couldn't explain it. And I also kind of started to pull away from Tyler a little bit, not because I didn't love him and care about him, but simply because I felt bad. I felt bad because I couldn't be that person I was in the past because my health was kind of pulling me down, and I needed to focus on just getting better. And through this time, Tyler really clung to me. He always supported me, and he was always there for me, and he was like praying for me and calling me and just saying like, I'm here for you, like how can I help? He was sending me text messages before my appointments and always eager to know how they went, always eager to know if we had any more answers. And I was just kind of shocked. I was shocked that someone would want to be a part of my life when it wasn't good and when it wasn't fun. And Tyler was there for me through that, and he was that man for me, and I was really blessed to have him. And so I had a lot of insecurities through this time, a lot of insecurities because I couldn't control what was going on, and I had always had a lot of control in my life. And I also had a hard time because I knew I wanted to be with him, but I wanted to be the best for him, and I couldn't at that time in my life. But he never left me, and he was always there for me.
This time was obviously like very trying on me. It was obviously trying on both of us.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was hard just to see her in this state. She was always the person that was up creating energy. She was always happy, always bouncing around and having a great time. And it was hard just because through all this, she lost a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. She didn't have as much fun just because she couldn't. Mm-hmm. And it was just hard for me to see her down like that. But through all this, she always tried her best. She was always the best person, even though she was different. And she always had a positive outlook on this. She always relied on God and just allowed Him to give her strength through all of this. Mm-hmm. And that's what really, I really learned some lessons through that. I never felt like I wanted to leave. I always had this like kind of peace of being together. I really felt like we were in the right spot. I feel like through all of this that we learned that we really could rely on each other, and that we were in this together, and that we were both in the right place and the right time for one another.
Mm-hmm. And it was one of those times where like our lives kind of shifted. I wasn't able to, as the sickness went on, I had a surgery, and it was supposed to fix things, and it didn't really fix everything. It helped some of the issues, but it didn't fix all of it. And so the issues just kind of continued, and they drug out over the years. And it was crazy because he was a person who was there with me on a Saturday night, like holding my hair while I was throwing up in the bucket on the couch, and a person who was just wiping my face with a cold rag or getting me water. And he didn't necessarily know what to do, but he knew he needed to be present. And that's so important. That's almost, you just can't replace that. That value that has meant more to me than he'd ever know. And it just showed that support. And he continued that support throughout the years, even through the hard times. And so we didn't know what the Lord was going to do with our relationship, but we knew that He placed us in each other's lives for a reason. And I needed Tyler because he was my rock, and he guided me back to the Lord through the hard times, and he was consistent with me. And I didn't know if we'd be together in the future, but I was hopeful. I was hopeful that we'd be together if I ever went through something hard again, or that if he went through something hard, I'd be able to be there for him like he was for me. And so we knew no matter what that we were going to always be thankful for that hardship, because it also brought us closer together. I know people say that all the time, but hardships really do. They help you become closer, and it helped us mature a lot in our relationship because we experienced something hard while we were so young. And it just helped our relationship flourish. So the Lord took something really bad and really hard and made it good.
The second hardship we went through was just a couple years later. It was when I went off to college. I grew up in the same small town for 18 years. My dad coached at the same school. I went to that school. I made the same friends at that school. I did the same activities there. My family was always close to me, both like my immediate family and everyone else, grandparents and all that. And I even dated the same girl almost my whole time in high school. But so through that, I mean, I never had to worry about change. I never had to learn how to overcome it or adapt or do anything. I just always had the same exact constant lifestyle. Going to college really shook all that up. I was living in a different state. I was living with people who I've never lived with before. A couple of them I knew, but a lot of them I didn't. I was forced to make new friends. I was studying stuff that I've never studied. And most importantly, I was away from my family and from my girlfriend. Through that, it was really hard for me. It was hard for me to be able to communicate with my family back home. It was hard for me to focus on my studies. It was hard for me to make friends. Really, the distance was just hard on us. I felt abandoned by her. Not that she had done anything, but just that I hadn't developed the communication skills yet. So I felt like I couldn't talk to her very much. We were only apart 200 miles, but it might as well have been 200,000. So after being up here for about a month, we finally had a long, hard conversation over the phone. It was on campus out on a bench, and I was just there by myself, totally isolated. We just talked for a very, very long time. But through that, I decided that I really wanted to be with Caitlin. We knew that we wanted to be together before college, and I never gave up that sort of like love and sort of dedication to a relationship. But it was just hard. We went through a very, very hard time. Through that conversation, we just decided that we needed to keep on going through, and that what we were going through was good, and it was good for us.
Yeah, I would definitely say this was the hardest season for me. It was hard to have him away, and it was hard for him to be going through all these changes, and for me not to be able to be there physically, to support him, to encourage him, to give him a hug, to just give him that support that I had always given him in the past. And so that was really hard on me. But also I was going through things at home, like my sickness was still kind of hard, and the Lord had kind of stripped activities away. I was no longer able to handle physical activities, so I wasn't able to be involved in those anymore. So I removed myself from that, and emotionally I needed to focus on myself and my health, and so I had to remove any extra drama or any extra friendships that added to the stress that was going on in my life. And so really stripped away all of the activities that I had ever been a part of. The last 3 years of my high school career, now I was a senior, and I wasn't a part of those activities anymore. Plus, my boyfriend was gone, and that was hard, but the Lord really did that on purpose. I really feel like He did that because He knew I needed to have this time, and I needed to have this time to grow closer to Him. And so this is really when I started being able to have time to read my Bible and dig into it and read good Christian books and pray while I was waiting to pick up the little girl I nannied, and to just have this time to be away from him physically. And I really feel like it was what we needed. We needed to be apart from each other, but it was definitely really hard. We had to learn how to communicate, not just where we were going, what we were doing, but also how we felt. Because when you see somebody, it's a lot easier to see them and feel those feelings without even having to say them sometimes. But when you're apart, you don't get to see them as often, so you have to learn how to do that. And so that year was so hard, and I just remember looking at my mom during one of our hard times and saying, Mom, if him and I get through this, I I think we'll be together for a very long time. But if we don't, this might be the end to what the Lord has for us. But I never wanted to give up on what we had, and I knew the Lord had given us such a special gift, and that I wanted to fight for it. And that's exactly what we did. We never gave up, and even through that hard year, it seemed like it was years, but it was only, in the reality, it was only 9 months of our lives. And so we were like, if we can just get through this 9 months, and we can come out stronger than before, then it's all going to be worth it. And it was.
For sure. So through all this, we really learned that intentionality was it's the most important thing in a relationship. We really had to be intentional with communicating with each other. We really had to cherish the time we had together. And we really just had to stick it out and know that through this, that we were getting stronger together and we were growing as individuals.
Yeah. Okay, so we just kind of want to give you some tips on what we learned through our seasons of hardship, and what we realized are kind of some key tricks to remember through the seasons of hardship. So the first one is fight for each other, not against each other. So fight for a common goal, which is to get through it and to be there for each other through the hard times and the good times. And if you want to be there for the good times, you've got to be willing to go through the bad. So fight for each other, not against each other. And the next one is communication is key. You have to communicate. You've got to learn how to communicate. And you know what? This is true in a dating relationship, with your family and with your friends. Communicating is different with every person in your life. And so you've kind of got to learn what works best for you and for each other. And getting a hold of that, I don't think it's ever going to be perfected. I don't think it's ever going to be exactly where it needs to be, but you can always be improving it. And you can definitely feel when you have good communication going back and forth in a relationship. And the last one that I have is never give up. Never give up. If you want this person in your life and you feel like they're important, you have to keep going. And you can't allow there to be a time where it's like, I'm done. And you kind of have to say, like, we're not giving up. Like, no matter what happens, no matter how hard this is, we're not walking away, and we're going to continue to fight for each other.
So the first one for me is intentionality is key. You really do have to be intentional with your energy, with the words you're saying, with the time that you're putting into the relationship, and really just any time you have together, you have to be intentional with your time.
Especially when it's hard.
Yeah, and especially when you're apart for a long time. The second one is hardships lead to growth, both together and personally. So growing through that, we really saw each other through both. We really felt a lot closer together, both through the hardship and on the other side.
Yeah.
And through both of them, we really did grow personally. We grew a lot. We both learned to rely on God more. And we both just kind of got stronger through that. The last tip that I have is hardship does give you a choice. And it gives you the choice whether or not to rely on yourself or to rely on God. You really come at a crossroads in a lot of these. And if you do learn to rely on God through this, it's one of the most strengthening situations that you can have. And it's really something that will help grow your faith more than anything else.
And so we are super excited for week 3, and that's going to be the season of growth. So we're going to talk about how you can grow and how you can be intentional with growing, and we're just really excited. So thank you for joining us for this week's season of hardship, and we hope that you guys enjoyed this and that you guys will watch next week. So you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and on our website.
Bye guys, we'll see you next week.
Bye!
No. I thought you were gonna come sit down.
Oh my gosh, I got you so good. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's so funny.